Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome to episode 5 of your success journey. And welcome to the Self Growth Lab, spreading hope and inspiration for your transformation so that you can live the life of your dreams. So, let's just do a quick recap on episode 4. Episode 4 was step 4, and that was all about getting into a good state, redoing your vision. It was all about designing your dream life, right? So we danced a bit, and then I asked you to sit down and from that good feeling state, just pretend you've got all the money in the world and just expand on that life vision that we started working on in episode 1. And then we also looked at your purpose, and that is your desired impact. What do I want to do in this world? What impact do I want to have? And I also said, if you don't know what your impact is, don't worry about that now. Some people only find out later in life. We are all different. I used the example of the founder of KFC. I think he only came to this purpose when he was in his mid 60s and became quite successful only then. So our journeys are all very, very different. And then we also looked at mission. How do I carry out this life vision, this purpose? What am I going to do to achieve this? And then your task for the week was to relook at your wheel of life. You've rated yourself before. Now, what we want to do is get a new rating. So, we want to see what does my life look like in a year from now. So, we take each segment and we want to decide how much we want to improve. So, if your segment or your life area on self growth was like a 3 out of 10, maybe over the next year you want to get to a 5 out of 10. So, you write that down and just decide that in each area how much you want to improve. And then what does that look like? I suggested maybe just writing a little mini vision of what does my life look like in that area now that I've made these improvements. So I think the main idea behind the Wheel of Life is to get us to living a 10 out of 10 in each area. So that can help us to really feel fulfilled and satisfied, I think, with our life in general all around. It's also a tool to definitely help us become the best version of ourselves. It can really help us in this area. It can help us to find that inner peace, to feel that contentment with life, to build our character, to even learn how to love ourselves in a healthy, deeper, meaningful, or more meaningful way. And in return, also teach us how to love others then in a more healthier way. And also about loving the journey, learning to love the journey as we go along, just one day at a time or one day at a time. If you think about a rose, think of a rose like blossoming slowly, right? It starts quite small and then slowly it starts to unfold and it just looks prettier and it has different stages until eventually it's like in full bloom and you've got this beautiful, well rounded rose. So you don't just like rip the petals apart and squish it and force that to happen. And I think that this is how our life unfolds as well. We have this beautiful unfolding as we grow and develop and go through different stages and levels, and it's this wonderful experience. But I was not like that in the beginning when I was trying to design and create my dream life and transform. I was wanting to rip it open, rip those petals open, rip my life open, squish it down, and have immediate success. I wanted to win the lotto. I didn't want to do the work. I didn't want to have to struggle a little bit and go through these life challenges. But I've learned that that's part of the journey. And I'm slowly learning how to actually enjoy the moments because that's what I believe it's about. I believe it's about enjoying these day to day moments, like we were talking about in a previous session, like feeling the sun on your skin and so forth. So, yeah, now I'm like more patient and more understanding. And there is magical moments even through our times of growth, even through our times of struggle. There is beauty around us. We just need to see it and allow ourselves to experience those moments. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows, but there is joy along this journey. And the more we learn to love it, the more we have to love, I guess. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there is actually beauty in this journey of getting from where we are to where we want to be, to having our desires fulfilled. What I've also uncovered or learned is that as we are becoming a better version of ourselves, as we're working more on ourselves, life around us seems to elevate. Things around us seem to get better and better as well. So there's a lot of, I guess, rewards for doing the work and being patient and going through this whole process. And that's why I use that little catchphrase, join the self elevation, because that's what we're doing. Elevate yourself, and your world will elevate around you as well. It's quite magical. Another fun idea, which I haven't mentioned in the last step, is to make a vision board. If you haven't heard of that, it's where we just make a vision board. We get a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard and stick pictures on there of what our future looks like. And you can put it somewhere on your wall, and maybe, or you can do a digital copy, have it on your phone, and just spend a few minutes every day just feeling what that feels like. Like, how do I feel now that I've achieved that? It's like, see yourself being that person already, that successful person. What does that feel like? Dressing in nice tailored clothes, if that's what your thing is, or what does it feel like to be able to just have the freedom to choose and do what I want and go where I want and visit who I want, all of those things. It's quite a powerful exercise, and I speak from my own experience because I use that technique to publish or self-publish my first book. In those days, technology was a bit different, things were a little bit slower, and I had this vision on my wall. This is what I want, the mock-up of my book, and everything just came to me, from an author to help me, to the resources to get the printing done and the design work for the cover. No, we didn't have AI then. And Bob's your uncle, eventually it became tangible, it manifested, it materialized in my real world. So this technique definitely works, and it's really powerful. I think the trick really is, though, to do it consistently and to maybe just believe that it's possible. I think we lack that self belief or faith that this can actually work, and that seems to deter things. But yeah, either way, just start and start feeling what that vision feels like. So you can do that now for the vision that you've created in episode 1 and episode 4. Maybe just start sticking things or even draw some stuff down, whatever feels good to you. I had a few other things, or quite a few other things, manifest over the years with this technique. And also, writing a list of what we want in life. That's also a great idea. I've managed to tick off a lot of things off lists that I've made, and I've heard, friends having the same experiences. I've seen other people online having the same experiences. Some people call it a bucket list. And last week, I had the privilege of having another amazing experience. So I learned this technique that I'm teaching you from a movie called The Secret, but I'd actually read the book first. And to my knowledge, it's reached about 250 million people. And one of the presenters, or one of the successful people in that book, had used this technique, and he had shared about it. And his name's John Assaraf. And that's obviously now what I applied in my life. Anyway, on this Zoom call, he was doing a seminar on Rewire Your Brain for Success. And he chose my question to be answered that I put in the chat, which was floored me in the first place. I got to speak to one of my heroes. It was a very surreal experience. And he really helped me with something I was struggling with. But not only that, at the end, I got to say thank you to him. I said to him, thank you for empowering me with the work that you did in The Secret to start trying these things and learning about myself and, this whole journey. It's been amazing. And he was just so humble about it. And he was just like, oh, you're welcome, type of a thing. And afterwards, I was still sitting in this very surreal moment. And I realized it's one of the things I had written on my list, that I want to be able to thank the great teachers that have helped me over the years. So yeah, that was quite a powerful realization of how, focused effort and thought really does materialize through action, of course, but it does happen. We can have our desires realized, and that's I hope a little bit of motivation, inspiration for you wherever you are at in your journey, just to keep going and knowing that these things will come through for you. Right, let's move on to step 5. And step 5 is simply called take action. Small steps equals big change over time. You might have heard that before. A lot of people talk about aligned action specifically, and that to me means we've got to focus our energy and attention and take action according to what we're moving towards. So here's my list of goals. If I want to achieve them, I need to start thinking, feeling, and behaving and taking actions in line with that. That's what they mean by aligned action versus getting up and doing 10 random things every day that's got nothing to do with my goals and my dream life. And I'm just taking action. I'm moving about the planet, but I'm not really taking focused, aligned action on what I'm trying to achieve. So for this step, we're going to look at some more focused attention. You're going to look at your wheel of life again and just decide what is one or two areas that I want to work on right now, okay? And then I'll give you a guide of what to do next. You can have that vision, all right, that you've now sort of done in this little area specifically. Then set more specific goals. So what do I actually want to achieve specifically in this area? For example, if it's finances, let's say you are earning about 500 Rand a month and you want to improve and you want to earn about 1,000 Rand in a year's time or within the next year, or 5,000 or 10,000 or 50,000, whatever your heart desires. Write that down. You're allowed to think big. Remember that. And then number 3, you're going to write down what's my plan of action. So how am I going to achieve this specifically? So for example, I can learn a new skill, like I can become a waitress or a life coach and make extra money that way, or do some freelance work online on platforms like maybe Upwork or something like that to make extra money. You can just invest if you want to. You can maybe make something and sell it to help you achieve that extra money every week. You can grow veggies, yeah. You can work with AI to get ideas to make money that are honorable, I guess. And I think there's also 3 qualities that will help you with this area, and that is to be disciplined, responsible, and have commitment. So we need to be disciplined, to take responsibility, to stick to the commitments we're making to ourselves so that we can achieve these goals that we want to achieve. We can improve these areas that we want to improve in. And to help you get through this consistently, you can form some good habits. So we can form habits to help us achieve the goals that we want to achieve, right? Story time. So I was on an online seminar with Tony Robbins, and he was talking about success, and I think, people feeling like they can achieve instant success overnight, or looking at stars, movie stars, things like that, and not realizing the amount of work it takes to actually to become a superstar or to become highly successful. So, well, for most people anyway. So he used the example of Michael Jordan, and he said, Michael Jordan practices in his off season 6 days a week, and he practices 1,500 shots every day for those 6 days. And that's how he became so successful at what he does. So he formed the habit. He formed the habit of doing this practice work so that he became super skillful, and then he became super successful. He didn't just wake up one day and had that habit and had those skills. He had to work on them, right? So you can also form the habit of doing the work every day to develop your skill or your studies or the product you want to make or the service you want to offer or the time you want to spend working with AI, for example, to learn how to do better in this area maybe. So what is a habit exactly? Well, I think just in a nutshell, we can say a habit is a behavior that you've repeated so many times that it becomes like automatic, basically. Your brain does it without thinking, without much conscious awareness. For example, walking or brushing your teeth. We don't really think about those things. We kind of just get up and do them, right? Of course, habits can be helpful or harmful, though. That's the important thing here. So we can have a habit of eating like a balanced, normal diet, or we can have a habit that's unhelpful of eating junk food, which is not good for us at all. Every day, I mean. Okay, so habits will basically shape our daily life. It will shape our productivity. It will shape our health. It will even shape our identity. How long does it take to form a habit? Well, anything from 4 days to 365 days. We are all very different when it comes to this. Some of us find it easier to form habits in certain areas, others struggle in certain areas. But they say on average about 2 months for, I guess, the average person. But again, it's going to be dependent on you individually. So for myself, I formed some habits of a morning routine and an evening routine where I do like a bit of prayer meditation in the morning, some affirmations, visualization, whatever I'm working on. And then I spot check myself throughout the day with the Bob exercise just to see how I'm thinking and feeling. Can I behave better or differently? Can I think or feel better? Obviously, not trying to suppress my emotions, but just being aware of what's happening up here and how it's affecting the world around me, right? Or those around me. And then in the evening, I like to do a bit of reflection, maybe every evening. Sometimes I miss an evening, but that's okay too. And then I try to fall asleep just feeling joyful and abundant and looking forward to tomorrow and kind of running through the day of all the good experiences I'd like to have the next day. And that's another habit that I have formed, which is a good habit. They're very helpful for me personally, anyway. So if you having to work a full job as well, what you can maybe do to form habits is in the mornings, we call it habit stacking. Just add a habit onto a habit. So while you're brushing your teeth, do some affirmations in the mirror. We'll talk about affirmations in the next step. And maybe set your alarm at lunchtime to take 20, 30 minutes to work on whatever you're working on, whether it's developing a skill or a product or something like that, and then maybe do that in the evening or choose one of those time slots to work on something that's going to help you get you to where you want to go. It's going to help you achieve the goals you're wanting to achieve, right? And then the trick is to push through, even when it feels uncomfortable. So remember, most of your days are already, or most of your day is already running on certain habits. And when you now introduce a new habit, your brain's like a little bit unsettled. It's not normal. It doesn't feel comfortable. It feels awkward. So what we tend to do is we tend to give up. We don't pursue it. We don't continue with it because it feels like that. But it's just your body adjusting. And within those couple of months or few days or few weeks, however long it takes you, it will feel more natural and more normal. So just keep pushing through that discomfort and do the things you need to do, even when you don't feel like doing it necessarily, because that's how we're going to form a habit. Another idea you can try is get an accountability buddy, someone that you can just check in to let them know that you've done what you said you were going to do for that day. So, for example, in another real life example, myself, I'm working on a new 90-day recode. There's some things I'm working on mentally and emotionally. And I have an accountability buddy, meaning I do the work and then I send him just a little tick to say, I've worked on my recoding, I'm changing the patterns that I've been struggling with. And that's all I have to do. I don't have to say a word. I just literally send him a tick mark. And that just gives me kind of a bit of motivation, I guess, or I know I'm accountable to that person. So I'm less likely not to do it. So that does work. And that helps me to form this new good habit of doing this recode for these 90 days and possibly longer. We'll see. Okay, so you have your task for the week. And I think a good idea is just to maybe work on each of those areas, one or two areas that you've chosen for about 2 months or so. You'll feel if there's shifts starting to happen, and you'll also realize if there's areas that need more work. And that's what we're also going to look at in the next step. The areas that we're struggling on, that we're really not making any progress in, we're going to look at why we are struggling, why we're staying stuck, why we can't move forward, or why we can't seem to move forward in this particular area. Okay, so that task is to obviously have that vision of that area that you want to improve in, then to set the goals, and then to work on an action plan. And then the fourth part of that will be to actually do the work, to actually take action now on that plan that you've set out for yourself. And that's where that discipline, responsibility, and commitment comes in. Also, bear in mind something, some people like a really detailed, set out, structured action plan or strategy to move towards things. Other people are more flexible and they like to go more with the flow. But in either case, we still need to do something in the real world. And that's quite important because sitting on the couch And just thinking about these things is not going to help us achieve what we want. So, what you could really write down, which I think is quite powerful, is thoughts. You can write this down. Repetition becomes habit, and habit becomes natural, meaning it becomes automatic almost, and it just feels like it's meant to be. So now all of a sudden, you've got the habit of doing the work. So it's a lot easier to get up and study. It's a lot easier to get up and work on the skill that I'm working on to help me achieve more money. That was the example we used. Do become things, okay? To me, thoughts become the actions that we take in the real world, the situations we experience, and the people that we connect with that help us along our journey to achieving our goals. You can also write this down. Thoughts become action, and action creates results. That's my experience when it comes to things like manifesting or materializing in the world around us. We've got to do something, right? And I do also believe that there are these miracle, magical moments, or what you call divine intervention. I believe I've experienced that myself. So, yeah, I'm open minded to all of it. I'm not saying that there is no such thing, but there is a pretty scientific, logical flow of how things, or psychological flow as well, of how things come about and how we experience or get to the results that we get to. So I just want to say thank you for your time today. That's the end of this session. Thanks for showing up for yourself. I can assure you, your future self thanks you for doing the work to achieve your dream life. You will get there if you keep going and you never give up. So I also wanted to just remind you that there is a chapter for each episode, and I will put the link in the comments for the payment, and then I will send you a copy once you send me the confirmation of the chapter and the workbook, or the chapter of the workbook. Enjoy your day further, and it's been great connecting with you. Have a beautiful evening or day.